Yep.
So the landmarks for the frontal bone, obviously the forehead is the major landmark, and then the ridges of the eyebrows, and then most people have a little bit of a knob on the side of their orbits, and that's kind of variable, but that's part of the frontal bone as well. And then the frontal bone goes back, and it goes back surprisingly far. A lot of people, you can feel the coronal suture, and it's clear back here on Anna. So it's back almost even with the ear. So it doesn't stop at the hairline like a lot of people think it does. It goes way back here. So it's a fairly decent sized bone. It's pretty big, and it goes down, and then of course there's articulation with the parietal bones. Now, most people's frontal bones don't touch their temporal bones. There's a little bridge of the wing of the sphenoid there, but that's somewhat variable as well. But most people I've worked with, their frontal bones don't touch the temporal bones. So how to do a frontal lift is I usually put my ring fingers near that bump on the sockets, and then you just lay your fingers right down on the frontal bone, and not just your fingertips like this. I'm not like this. I'm actually laying the whole part of my fingers down on the frontal bone, and then this is where you get to do some fun magical thinking, because then I put suction cups on my fingers like a octopus has, and then I lift the frontal bone towards the ceiling.
So you're like kind of going up.
So I'm lifting it right towards the yellow globe. And
Are you
then
lifting with your pinkies?
no, my pinkies are just kind of along for the ride now, because they're down on the. But it starts, and then what you do is you listen for unwinding. Feel if it wants to unwind. Okay. So that's what I do first. I just put that invitation in for it to go up towards the ceiling, and so we call that ceiling dad direction. It's anterior anatomically, and just follow the unwinding. And if that's all it needs, then that's great, and you just follow it and follow it. And so I gave you a handout yesterday on some of the signs of tissue release. So what would be one of the things that you might feel as this releases?
You might feel like a deep breath. The
She might
brain
take a
change.
sigh. Yeah.
Increase heat radiating.
Yeah, and there is heat coming out of her frontal bone.
Increased vibration.
Yeah, so what the sensation we're looking for with the frontal bone is this feeling like it's just going to lift up all the way to the ceiling. Like it'll just go and go and go like this. Obviously it won't, but that's that sensation, right? So once I do the unwinding, which she's still unwinding, so I'll save some of that for whoever works with you. But then what I do is, it always reminds me of that song Desperado, by the Eagles. I think it's the Eagles, right? And outriding fences, So in my mind, I go around all the sutures of the frontal bone and just check in to see if there are any restrictions anywhere. And I often start here and go around, and that's why it's important to remember that fjord to check the sutures in there. And then check the sutures along the left eye socket, and then around to the sphenoid, and then the parietal bone in the back. And it's moving over to the right parietal bone, and over to the right. So there's a little bit of a restriction where her frontal bone and the greater wing of the right greater wing of the sphenoid attached. There's a little bit of restriction there. So I'm just going to put a little extra attention there and a little extra traction. Beam some energy into there, and it starts to unwind. Now, most of the motion of that unwinding is happening right behind the nasal bones, but it's pinned back over here on this side. There we go. Then it's going to go around the rest of the sutures. Until I'm back where I started. So that's how I free up the frontal bone, and then once I get done riding the fences, then I'll check into the falx. And just sense into the falx and see what's going on there. It's interesting. She has a little more constriction in the right hemisphere of the dura than the left hemisphere. So we'll see what that's about. So the dura that forms the floor, on the right half, going back this way is a little. It's like it's gone like this, compared to the other side. It's a little shrunken in. So I'm just going to invite it to see what it needs to do. Invite it towards the ceiling. And that restriction could have been what compressed that suture over here on this side. Got it to get stuck. So what it's asking is, so now I'm kind of rocking this way because I'm putting more lift on that underside than up here to kind of pry that bottom part of the dura. There it goes, and then it releases like that.
And it just feels like a softening under your fingers.
Yeah, like that. So the restriction's not there, and both sides feel more symmetrical. Still got a little adjusting to do to that. It's unwinding a little bit more. So then just stay with it and follow it. So the unwinding, you're basically just following what the body's doing. You're following the movements. And they... Have you ever seen a video of a stingray swimming through the water? How the wings of the stingray move as it swims? That's how a lot of tissues feel like when they unwind. They just, that kind of undulating. But it's in 3 dimensions a lot of times. So there's a little bit left. We'll save that for who works on you. Is that okay? You alright?
Yeah.
No headache or
No.
blurred vision or anything? Okay.
No.
Good. So, so that's a frontal lift, and just try to work with people until you feel like that frontal bone can just go up towards the ceiling. Okay. So the trick to the frontal lift is the suction cup fingertips. And there's a couple other places we'll use suction cup fingertips in the cranial work, but yeah, that's one of those things that your medical education says that's impossible. You can't do that. But you actually, I don't know. Can you?
I felt it.
Does it feel like it's lifting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can you go like this and lift something up? Doesn't make sense, right? But you can. So go figure. So, but it works.
So sometimes when you do this
Thank you.
front lift, the person might experience a little bit of a headache. When you asked her, did she?
I was just making sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that dura down the inside could trigger some things.
It actually felt like tension release like all the way down my neck into my back even.
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
When I was watching you put your hands, you were talking about the ring finger being on more in the kind of corner of the eye.
When I start, yeah. Doesn't
But
always
when-
stay there.
Okay. Because when I start looking again, you're pretty much at the eyebrow corner.
Yeah, and some classes I've taken, the more osteopathic classes where you're literally getting in there and manipulating the bones, they have you like dig in on there and lift, almost like lift their head up off the table
Okay.
by digging in here. And man, you really don't need to do that to get it to free up, you know. So that's just a landmark to notice, that make sure you're up on the frontal bone by feeling that knob there.
Is there any kind of a, like grabbing it with your, grabbing it mentally this way, or is it just putting the fingers lightly on top and putting the sections and going
Yeah.
up, or is there a little bit of this?
There wasn't any of that grabbing, right? No.
Okay.
Just put your fingers down. But the key is you want as much contact of your finger as possible. You don't just want your fingertips.
Right.
You want to lay your fingers right down. And then just put the suction cups. Have you ever had those things that you stick to a window?
Yeah.
But you put the suction on there and then you click the little lever and it really sucks it down? That's what I use. I put the fingers down and I imagine just really, okay, put the suction on and then lift. Okay? Whatever.